There have been a lot of conservation success stories in Britain over the last few years. None of them have perhaps been as exciting as the return of peregrine falcons. There was a time just 40 years ago when they were close to extinction in Britain. Pesticides like DDT were discovered to be the cause. They were soon banned, but the damage to peregrines was already done. Thankfully, their numbers have been building up again ever since. Peregrines are not just nesting in their old cliff haunts, but also in new ones in city centres. These are surrounded by man-made hazards. Because of these, young falcons are sometimes getting injured. A new conservation effort is now necessary. Campbell Mearn works at the Hawk Conservancy Trust at Way Hill near Andover. They're often the first to get news of an injury.
The first thing we do when a bird presents to the hospital is of course assess its injuries and the state of shock and whether it needs critical care. In conjunction with that, we'll look at the nature of the injuries and make an almost immediate decision as to whether the bird is suitable for treatment or whether it needs to be euthanized because of the severity of its injuries. When we first hold the bird, we check all the joints, bone structures to make sure that they're all intact. So we're looking for breaks, dislocations, anything that can impede its flying performance. Well, peregrine injuries most commonly are wing injuries, and then secondary to that we get a lot of young birds that aren't actually injured but come in having either come from a disturbed nest or they've fallen out of their nest. For example, we had chicks that fell out of Fawley Power Station near Southampton. And the vet will be part of the initial assessment for the bird to determine its suitability for rehabilitation, because unfortunately some birds that do present to our hospital, they're beyond repair and unfortunately they have to be euthanized. So the vet is an integral part of that initial assessment, getting a bird ready to go onto a longer term rehab program. So the first thing you'll need to do is contact DEFRA, Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. They need to know straight away when you've received an injured peregrine for rehabilitation. We get a lot of birds admitted to our hospital here, and because of the intensity of treatment that peregrines often require, the assistance of additional people who have experience with training and working with peregrines is essential, and the British Falconers Club is a tremendous resource of people who have that experience, and there's very, very experienced people who can dedicate the time and effort necessary to get birds like peregrines rehabilitated and back to the wild.
The British Falconers Club are keen to help in the rehabilitation scheme, as like the Hawk Conservancy Trust, they really care for the wild raptor populations. The club is the oldest and largest in the country, and has people like Anthony Rhodes, with huge experience in flying falcons.
When this particular bird came into captivity, I was utterly convinced it wouldn't return to the wild. Its injuries were pretty severe, to the point where I would say on at least 3 occasions I was on the point of giving up because there was absolutely no improvement, and we were going out. I mean, just to give you an idea of, its powers of flight were more or less non-existent when I got it. Its wing was incredibly stiff, and all it was capable of doing for at least 3 or 4 weeks was like quite a large jump, and its wing was discernibly hung down. You could see that when it tried to exert itself, one wing was, it would drop, the wing would droop.
The falcons are trained to allow them to get fit. As part of the recovery and strength building process, a lure attached to a kite encourages the falcon to climb higher. Gary Benson has a falcon which is well ahead in the rehabilitation process. It's now very fit and ready for release back to the wild. A suitable site is chosen, close to where the falcon was first picked up injured. However, release isn't the end of the falconer's effort. A radio transmitter attached to the tail will allow Gary to follow the falcon in the wild every day over the next few months. It's a time-consuming process for everyone, but both the Hawk Conservancy Trust and the British Falconers Club know that conservation of all wild raptors is paramount. Falconers care for all birds of prey. To see injured falcons return to the wild is a demanding but very rewarding task, one that the British Falconers Club can add huge value to.